fighting first broke out on the 9th of February 2015 in the town of Laukkai near the border with China as the Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army or MNDAA tries to regain the territories it lost to the Tatmadaw in the 2009 Cocking incident. Two other rebel groups, the Irrawaddy Army and the Tung National Liberation Army, were reported to have joined forces with the Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army in the conflict, totaling around 3,000–4,000 rebel fighters. Security forces defending Laukkai consisted of an unknown amount of troops from the Northeastern Regional Command, local police forces and the 99th Light Infantry Division. Between 9 to the 12th of February, at least 3 armed engagements took place in the Cocking Special Region's Laukkai Township between the Army's Northeastern Regional Command soldiers and the rebel fighters. Rouge rebel fighters, which broke away from the MNDAA's main body, attempted to assault a military headquarters in the Congayan region and Mortaik. However, after fierce fighting with pro-government militias, the rebel fighters were forced to retreat and could not attack the headquarters as planned. Their retreat was followed by 5 airstrikes launched by the Tatmadaw, which inflicted an unknown amount of dead and wounded on the retreating rebel fighters. The government later reported that 47 of its troops have been killed and 26 rebel bodies have been recovered. Many civilians trapped in the fighting were evacuated by military trucks to take refuge in the local military headquarters, while the wounded ones were treated by the Red Cross Society. The clashes in the region were some of the fiercest in the country in 2 years. Government forces were able to recover 13 bodies of rebel fighters and captured 8 seriously wounded rebels. 98 weapons have also been seized, including small arms, heavy machine guns and anti-aircraft weapons. As fighting in the city ensued, the rebel groups had began fortifying and setting up strongholds at mountainous regions on point 1607, point 1709, point 1742 and the most strategic stronghold at point 2202. All of these mountain outposts surrounded the Laukkai city and was heavily manned by rebel forces. On the 9th of March 2015, the Tatmadaw began an offensive on rebel positions in the city. The offensive started off with the shelling of Kautangshan district of Cocking after confirmation that all civilians in the area have been evacuated. After the shelling, government forces assaulted rebel positions in the Kautangshan district and were able to capture the positions. Among the bodies of rebel fighters recovered in the district, some were identified as child soldiers. After this assault, rebel fighters were forced to retreat to their mountain outposts. These mountain outposts were located in areas which were easy to defend for the rebel fighters but extremely hard to capture. By early March, all rebel forces were flushed out of the city. Tatmadaw were able to regroup successfully and resupply the combat units while airlifting wounded personnel to Mandalay. This marked the start of a major offensive to capture all strongholds in the hills surrounding Laukkai. Point 1607, point 1709 and point 1742 fell to the military on May 11th and 12th after fierce fighting. These points were heavily fortified with improvised explosives surrounding them which slowed down advances, and they were strategically placed to make assaults on the points very difficult. However, with their support from attack aircrafts and Mi-35 attack helicopters, the light infantry divisions and other infantry divisions were able to storm these positions. Many laptops, drugs, food and medical supplies, weapons, explosives and equipment were seized by the Tatmadaw during these offensives. On the 14th of May, the Tatmadaw has began assaults on the last strategic stronghold of rebel forces at point 2202. It was estimated that around 550 rebel fighters held point 2202. The military began the operations by shelling and conducting airstrikes on the stronghold with mortars, field artillery pieces, attack aircraft and helicopters. Soldiers from the Northeastern Command and 99th Light Infantry Division began digging up trenches and fortifying positions surrounding point 2202. These trenches were defended with small arms, rocket-propelled grenades, grenade launchers, 50 calories machine guns and other heavy weaponry. The main assault on point 2202 was spearheaded by the 99th Light Infantry Division. While they were advancing up the hill, mortar, artillery fire and attack helicopters bombarded the enemy positions, which made it hard for rebel fighters to open fire on the advancing government forces. Soldiers advancing fired grenade launchers, rocket-propelled grenades and rifle grenades at the visible enemy fortifications. Artillery and airstrikes were accurate enough to devastate enemy positions while not hitting the friendly advance. On May 15th, the Tatmadaw announced that the last stronghold of the rebel fighters had been seized. The coalition of rebel forces have failed to capture Laukkai and are forced to flee to China. This battle proved the capabilities of the Tatmadaw, as they were able to respond to the threat fast enough before rebels were able to hold their ground in Laukkai. The Tatmadaw was able to act swiftly and defended the country's sovereignty. In Lashio, a cemetery has been built to commemorate the fallen heroes that fought for their country and sacrificed their lives to make the region peaceful and free of rebel fighters.
Then